Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming today for the last session in our series of discussion on when the Supersoul speaks with us. So this is the section on the history of the Srimad Bhagavatam where the Puranjan pastime is coming to its conclusion, and Puranjan, who has in his next life become a queen who has now lost her husband. At that time, when she is devastated and feeling abandoned, at that time the Lord comes in the form of a Brahmana. He is the Avigyan Sakha, the unknown friend. And he starts speaking to her words of wisdom. And he's telling her, how we have been close to each other, but you have wandered away from me. And you become attached to the body and get lost within it. And through it all, I have been with you all this time. So this is not just a conversation that happens at one time in some story. It is actually meant to be the conversation that happens between us and the Lord. The Lord is trying to speak to us. And if our mind becomes calmer and clearer, we can start perceiving that. But till then, we can try to appreciate the Lord's wisdom and Lord's love through such conversations. So let's continue reading the section. So, who would like to test it? Like Mr. We have a mic. We have a second mic somewhere. Okay, it's here. So once we can have Prabhu's once mother is reading. Yes.
My dear friend, I, the Supersoul, and you, the individual soul, are not different in quality, for we are both spiritual. In fact, my dear friend, you are qualitatively not different from me in your constitutional position. Just try to consider this subject. Those who are actually advanced scholars, who are in knowledge, do not find any qualitative difference between you and me.
So do not find any qualitative difference. Aham bhavan na chanyasvam. So now one of the Upanishads Mahavakya is Tattvamasi, that you are that. And there are elaborate discussions by the Vedantic commentators on what does it mean. So Tvam eva vichakshuva. Like actually there is a fundamental level of similarity between us. Now, no, pashyanti kavayash. Kavayash is the wise people. Pashyanti. What do they see? What do they see? Chitram jatu manag. It's only because of the mind that chitram. There's a sense of separation, a sense of being separated or different. So there is a time when the quantitative difference between us and the Lord is to be emphasized. And there is a time when the qualitative oneness of us with the Lord is to be emphasized. Both of them have their place. So, for example, when we are overwhelmed by the enjoying or the control mentality, at that time, it is important to emphasize that we are tiny, the Lord is mighty, and we are the servants of Krishna. At the same time, when we are filled with anxiety, when we are filled with fear, when we are filled with uncertainty, at that time, what needs to be emphasized is that just as the Lord is eternal and indestructible, we are also eternal and indestructible. So both sides, the Bhed and the Abhed, needs to be emphasized. If only the Bhed is emphasized, then the relationship aspect. If only the Bhed is emphasized, then the sense of security and the sense of calmness and safety that comes by understanding the qualitative oneness that can be lost. But if only the Abhed is emphasized, then the beauty of the relationship and the love that can come through the relationship, that can be lost. So our relationship with Krishna, is only Bheda. Bheda means what? Difference. So it's often called oneness and difference, or you can also say similarity and dissimilarity. So if only the Bhed is emphasized, that could be an extreme, and only the Abhed is emphasized. So if only the Bhed is emphasized, then what happens? Then there is basically the fragility. Our bodies are so fragile, they can be destroyed so much. The fragility of our being, it leads to a sense of insecurity. It makes us feel that okay, God is so far away from me, God is so different from me, that we are also spiritual, we are eternal, we are indestructible. In the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna is overcome by fear, when Arjuna is overcome by fear, of course, his fear is not fear of his own death. His fear is of doing the wrong thing and causing the death of many others. There, Krishna doesn't begin by telling him, you are the servant of God. Krishna begins by telling him, you are eternal. Why? Because in general, Veda, if it is emphasized, it does something and it does not do something. When the Abheda is emphasized, it does something, it does not do something. So when the Abheda is emphasized, then only Abheda, then there is no relationship and there is no love thereby. So it leads to like an existential loneliness. A sense of oneness is ultimately very lonely. So basically we are different from the Lord. The Lord is great and we are small. So this actually counters desire. Generally, the soul is agitated by two things, fear and desire. So the desire that I want to be the controller, I want to be the enjoyer, that by emphasizing, hey, the Lord is so great, we are so small, how much can we enjoy? We are meant to serve Him. It is good. But when the abheda is emphasized, the positive of that is it counters fear. We are eternal, right? That's why the Gita starts with this, because Arjuna is not afflicted by greed to get a kingdom. Arjuna is affected by fear. So the balance is both. We talk about Bheda and Abheda. So now in the case of whether we of this queen who has become a widow now, what is she affected by? Is it desire or fear? It is fear, isn't it? So she's lost her husband, she's all alone. Actually, fear is there. So at that time, what needs to be emphasized is the soul is eternal. When somebody has lost a loved one, we shouldn't be emphasizing God's greatness. God's will is perfect. And don't you dare question God's will. No, at that time, somebody has lost a loved one. You know, your loved one is eternal, and they have gone to some other place, but they're still living. And you are also eternal. Your life will also go on. So the right thing needs to be emphasized at the right time. So here the super soul himself, see the whole tone of the super soul is not that I am God and you are disobeying me and that's why you're suffering. It's I'm your friend. You've forgotten me. And the tone is not at all actually the judgmental here. The tone is very friendly. It's like God is extending a hand of friendship more than the hand of mercy. The hand of friendship is more horizontal. The hand of mercy is more vertical, like somebody from above is lifting us up. Now that is also true. There is Tesham Aham Samudharta. You may have seen the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the image that the Vishnu is coming on Garuda and extending his hand and lifting the soul out of the ocean of material existence. That is true. That is there. But there is the hand of mercy. There's a time for that, and there's a hand of friendship. So here, the tone is more the tone of friendship. That's why the word is Avigyat Sakha. It is not, I'm your Nath, I'm your Swami. There's a time for that also. But here, the mood is much more personal, like a friend. So we are qualitatively the same. Then, yes.
As the person sees the reflection of his body in mirror, to be one with himself and not regret, whereas others actually see two bodies. so in our familiar connection, in which the living being is affected and yet not affected. There is a difference between God and the living.
Yes. So this is somewhat complex metaphor. But I think now the previous verse, the focus was on the Abhed. Now there is some point into the Bhed also. That so there is a relationship between us and the Lord. And there are many different metaphors used for it. Sometimes it is like the Lord is like the fire and we are the sparks. Sometimes it's like the Lord is the original and we are all the reflections. So now what is being described over here is sometimes a person who is naive may see the reality, may see the reflection. They say, okay, both look identical. But one is real, one is the reflection. So in the Abrahamic religions, the man is made in the image of God. There is a lot of theological exposition on what does it actually mean. Does it mean literally that only humans have souls? Because only man is made in the image of God, not any animals. Or does that mean God has a form like human beings? There are many different explanations given to that. But the idea is there is some similarity. When man is made in the image of God, that does not mean that man is God. There's a difference between it. But there is also some similarity. So the metaphor here is used that when we see a reflection, we see a reality. People may think they are exactly similar, but they're not actually the same. One is the reflection, one is the reality. So the Lord is the source of every one of us. Aham sarvasya prabhavo. Now, no material metaphor can absolutely capture a spiritual reality. And so every metaphor serves some particular purpose to convey some particular purpose. So here, the point is not that we are false. Like a reflection doesn't exist in one sense. But the point is that we have come from the Lord. The reflection wouldn't exist without the source. So basically, she's being told over here, the Lord is sustaining. The Lord is the source of your existence. Yes, you're qualitatively one, but still it is the Lord who is sustaining you. Yeah.
In this way, both swans live together in the heart. When the one swan is instructed by the other, he is situated in his constitutional position. This means he regains his original Krishna consciousness, which was lost because of his material attraction.
Yes. So here, here the examples are small. Evam samanaso hamso. That there, here the word manasa, the mind is a very complicated concept, but it refers to the inner world, the inner landscape within us. In that, the hamsa, both of them live. Hamsena pratibhodita. So one, you may have seen the Bhagavad Gita, the image of the two birds on a tree. One bird is pecking the fruits of the tree and the other is watching. But in the second bird just turns toward the first bird. Samana vrikshe purusho nimagro nisheshojiti muhyamana asyamidajushtam anyamisham asya mahimanam iti shokaha. By understanding the glory of the Lord, person can become free. The bird just eating fruits can become free from all distress. So the Lord is with us. Hamsena pratibodhita. But when we are ready to become enlightened by our Lord, swasthasya vibicharena. Swastha is in our own situation. But from that vibicharena, from that one has slipped away, one has gone away. Nashtam apa punasiddhim. That smriti, that memory just lost, can be restored. If it just turns toward the Lord, is enlightened by the Lord. So indirectly, he's telling her that the wisdom that I'm giving is meant to enlighten you. Yes. Yeah, the Maharaj.
Instruction the supreme personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, is celebrated to be known indirectly. Thus, I have described the story of Purajana to you. Actually, it is an instruction for self-realization.
Yeah. So now this is the conclusion of the chapter. Parokshena pradarshita. Parokshena means indirectly. So this is not, the story of Puranjan is not history. It is an allegory. It is a symbolic story meant to convey something. So Parokshena. So Paroksha is sometimes opposite to the Pratyaksha. There may be different ways of understanding, directly, indirectly. So this is the conclusion of the story. But the point is, the last verse was that if we are ready to be pratibodhita, we are ready to be enlightened by the Lord, then we all can become swastra. We all can become situated in our original position. And let's see how we can do that. So I'll do a quick recap of what we have been discussing. What's the broad acronym we have been discussing in connecting Supersoul? At ACT. A was appreciate. So appreciate means we discussed how when we are functioning in the world, we can start seeing that there is some higher reality, there is some higher organizing principle. We appreciate the gift of life. There are many points, but it's one point, the gift of life. When we are going through life, we will have different worldviews. And which is the worldview that is the most affirmative for us? So we discuss the worldview of devotion, where this world is real and the other world is also real. So I'm really focusing on these points from the classes, which we'll be building on today. And C was connect. So connect means what we discussed yesterday is how do we connect the events of our life with the Lord. So here we discuss the gifts in life. It's very easy to forget the gift of life because we're so caught in the daily life challenges. And then we discussed how we can appreciate that there is some order. We have some gifts. Yesterday I discussed acronym. Anyone remembers that? Yes. So we discussed primarily about the principle of karma as an organizing principle. So we appreciate that there are good things in my life, that I have got good things. I've got good things, and there are times when I did good and I got good also. But then P was persist. We understand that when things don't seem to be working, either I can say there is no ordering principle at all, or that the ordering principle is against me, both of which are not very healthy worldviews. So we understand that there is some bigger picture. So instead of no ordering principle, no order, or the order is against. The order means a higher principle is against me. So the solution is there's a bigger order is there. So I'm going through some negative phase right now. That's why I'm not getting the results. So we persist through that. And then T was transcend. Transcend means basically the things which we are worried about, we start realizing that they are not that big. So we discussed this metaphor of how initially the world is big and God is small. And eventually what happens is the world becomes big and God becomes small for us. Does it? No. Okay. So initially the world is big and God is small. Eventually the world becomes small and God becomes big. So so it's like when we say a child grows. So initially what happens, the child sees desires as more important than needs. When the child grows, then what happens? The needs become more important than desires. So like that also for us, the spiritual things, our inner state of mind, our thoughts, we realize they matter for our happiness and well-being much more than things in the outer. So today we'll be moving on this background, the last part. What was T? Target. Yes. Target means we don't just want to connect with the Lord and seek His blessings in this world. It's a good thing, but there is something. We want to make the Lord the goal of our life. We don't just want Him to give us good things in life. We want to come to the appreciation that He is the ultimate good of life. So let's see how this happens. So today's discussion, I will to some extent based on the 7th chapter, 7.16 to 7.19. It's a section where Krishna talks about the 4 kinds of people who come to him. And then 719 is how Bahunam Janmanam Ante, person becomes surrenders to him completely. So now let's consider 2 metaphors for the stages. So here it is, we could say starting devotion or impure devotion, mixed devotion. And then there is deep devotion. So initially, say if we could use 2 different metaphors for the relationship of God, of we and God. So one metaphor we could use is child and parent. So now, say if a child has gone away from the parent because of whatever misunderstanding or some conflict or whatever, and then the child gets into some problem. And when the child is in a lot of trouble, the child comes to the parents, please, can you help me? Now, at that time, are the parents going to say that now that you are in trouble, only then you came to us? The parents are going to say that if you're in so much trouble, why did you come before? Why did it take so long? It takes so long for you to come. The parents are always the beneficiary of the children. So, like that, for whatever reason we come to Krishna, Krishna is happy that we come to him. And that's why he uses the word Sukrutina. Sukrutina. Anyone, for whatever reason they're coming, Krishna is saying they're good people. In fact, next verse he says, Udaraha sarva evaite jnanitva matam. He goes on to say the jnanis are better. We will talk about why. But Udaraha sarva evaite. What does the word Udara mean? Udara. Generous. Udar dil ka. So generous. So normally we can have, say there is the donor and there is the receiver. Or we could say there is the seeker. The seeker of charity and the giver of charity. So now normally in this interaction, whom would we call as charitable? Udara. The giver would be called as Udara, isn't it? But amazingly here, Krishna is here and the soul is here. And the soul has also come to Krishna for some material thing or material. And Krishna is calling the soul as Udara. So how can the seeker of charity be considered to be generous? So the idea over here is that Krishna is so eager for our love. Krishna is so eager that we come back to him, we connect with him, we have a relationship with him. He's so bhavagrahi, he's so much wanting bhakti that if we just offer even a bit of our heart to him, and for whatever reason we offer the heart to him, Krishna becomes very happy. So thank God you come. Now God doesn't say thank God. But the idea is that Krishna is so happy. Oh, at last you have come to me. So that's how Krishna is saying, you see, when there are problems, people can go in many different directions. Somebody can try to rob and cheat and try to solve the problem. Somebody can just take drugs and go into alcohol and just destroy themselves. People can try to deal with problems many different ways. Krishna is happy that we have come to. Oh, he says, your heart. See, Krishna controls everything in this world except one thing. What is that one thing? Our free will. Yes, that's true from a philosophical perspective. From a devotional perspective, a relational perspective, it's our heart. Krishna can't control us. Krishna doesn't control us. And yet Krishna wants us to offer our heart to him. So when we offer our heart or even a small part of our heart, Krishna is extremely pleased. So in one sense, Krishna is appreciative that we are coming to him. So this is Krishna's greatness. That even if we come to him because we are in trouble, Krishna is happy that we are kind. He is very kind. He is very happy. But now we could use another metaphor for the same thing. If we take the metaphor of a lover and a beloved, say a boy proposes to a girl, please marry me. And the girl asks, okay, why do you want us to marry? Why do you want to marry me? And the boy says, because no other girl in the city is ready to marry me. Now, that won't be the most romantic of proposals, isn't it? So, now if the girl accepts the proposal at that time, that shows her love for him, not his love for her. Even if she is her last option, she is his last option, still she's so happy, she so much wants to be with him that she's ready to be the last option. But the boy's love for the girl will be shown when even if other options come for him, he stays with her. So like that, for most of us, we turn to God when nothing else works. We offer to भगवान ने सब कुछ ट्राई किया है ये नहीं हुआ मेरा यू आर आप ही मेरे आखिरी सहारा हो. Now we often express it we often speak it as an expression of our despair or intensity or urgent need. But who would really like to be the last option? Isn't it? But Krishna is so kind. Even if we are the last option, he accepts us. So that shows Krishna's love for us. But our love for Krishna will be shown when we make him our first option. That we turn to Krishna not because nothing else is working, but because even if everything else is working, Krishna, you are better than all. So that is our love for Krishna. So basically, Krishna's love for us is that he accepts that we are we are the last option. But our love for Krishna is the opposite. That we establish him as our first option. Like in the Bhagavad, it says, Ma Manusmara Yudhyacha. We remember me, and then you fight. So we start our day not like, oh, okay, what has happened? What has happened in this part of the world? How is stock market and this and what has happened? We start our day with our sadhana, with our prayers, with remembering. So, of course, in the practicalities of by practical dealing with the world, we have to focus on the issues that we have to face with. But in our heart, in our understanding of priorities, Krishna has to be the first priority. So this is the evolution of devotion. So this is 7.16 that Krishna accepts everyone. But 7.19 is Krishna becomes our first priority. Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Krishna is everything. Whatever pleasure and shelter or things of this world may give me, all that and more is given by Krishna. And therefore, I will focus on Krishna. Vasudeva Sarva. This is not an easy state to attain. Samahatma Sudurla. It's a rare state to be attained. So, today what we'll be discussing is this evolution of devotion. How can we do that? So, initially, God is one of our options, and that's also God is happy to be that. But to make it the first option. So, did you go from this 7.16 level to 7.19 level? This is our evolution devotion from, say, we can say mixed devotion to pure devotion, or from the world as our priority to God as a priority. Going back to that particular diagram which I had drawn over here. See, initially for us, the world is big and God is small. And here, the world becomes big and the world becomes small and God becomes big. So that is one difference, but there is another difference over here, that here the world is the means. Sorry, God is the means and the world is the ends. Means and ends means what is the tool we are using and what is the goal we are trying to achieve. So the idea is I'll worship God so that my problems in this world can be solved. So the world is the means and God is the ends. But at this stage, the world becomes the means and God becomes the ends. That means that if I can get wealth in the world, with that wealth, I can serve Krishna. If I get fame, if I get power, if I get talent, I'll use it in Krishna's service. But the fame or talent or wealth, those are not the goal. It is Krishna who is the goal. So the pure difference between pure devotion and so when we talk about the difference between means and ends, which is more important, the means or the ends? The ends are more important. Like say you wanted to come for this program. Now, if you had your car, you come by your car. But if your car suddenly stops working, you might decide, okay, I have to fix the car. I have to fix the car, so I can't come for the program. That could be one way of looking at it. If you really need the car for going somewhere else, you get up in the program. But if the coming to the program is the important end for you, then okay, the car doesn't work, then we'll hire a cab, we'll ask somebody if they are passing by, they can give us a lift. We'll find some other means. So when the world becomes the means and Krishna becomes the ends, that means the devotee's devotion is not dependent on what that devotee gets in the world. The devotee gets wealth, yes, I'll use the wealth in Krishna's service. But if I don't get the wealth, it doesn't mean I'll stop my service to Krishna. Because Krishna is the more important thing. So in one sense, the means are variable. So there could be prosperity, that could be a means. There could be poverty. Now poverty may make it more difficult to serve Krishna in some ways, but the difficulty is more at the material. Patram pushpam phalam to, Krishna says that you don't have to make elaborate. Even if you offer me a fruit or a flower, I'll accept that. The ends is invariable. The ends is fixed. The ends is Krishna for us. So quite often, when we are practicing bhakti, even when our ends is Krishna, sometimes we become very attached to particular means. I want to do this project for Krishna. I want to do this service for Krishna. And if that doesn't work out, we start thinking, what is the point of practicing bhakti only? Does Krishna even care for me? Does this bhakti even work at all? And that way, we can become discouraged in our devotion. So this Krishna, our topic today is how do we make Krishna the target and not make the Krishna a means to the world as a target. So I talk about two broad steps in this, and then we will discuss some elaboration of the steps. This is based on 6.35 in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna and Arjuna says, the mind is chanchalam himana, Krishna, it's very difficult to manage. So what does Krishna say? Abhyasen tu kaunteya, vairagena chakraviyate. So abhyas and vairagya. So now abhyas and vairagya, these words can be translated many different ways. Different acharyas will translate different ways. So one way to understand this is boundaries and bonds. Boundaries and bonds. This is a useful translation of these two words, especially if we are focusing on the principle of relationship. What what determines whether Krishna is big or Krishna is small? Actually, Krishna is always the biggest reality. It's only because of our mind's distorted perception that Krishna becomes small and the world becomes big. Whatever becomes big for someone, that is because of the mind's perception. Somebody is attached to sports. For them, who wins the match becomes the most important thing in the world for them. That's because of the mind. So when you say you want to make Krishna big and the world small, it's not so much making as our mind realizing. So So the principles that apply to the mind management, they apply here also. In any relationship, how does a relationship develop? Any relationship has these two things: is bonds and boundaries. If a man and a woman get married, then for the bond to develop, they need to spend time together, they need to do something valuable together. When they have a child together, then they become bonded even more together. And then if that relationship is to be serious, then there are boundaries. The way, say, a unmarried man or unmarried woman may deal with other people. Married man, married woman don't deal that. So there are certain boundaries that come after the relationship. So for a relationship to be serious, there are bonds and boundaries. And the same principle applies for our relationship with Krishna. So the bond that is developed is basically we bond with the things that remind us of Krishna. So we come to the temple, we chant the holy names, we hear Krishna Katha, we develop a bond with those things. See, Krishna is not yet visible for us directly, right? But there are places where Krishna is more manifest to us. And by going to those places regularly, we develop a bond. Now, the boundaries are with things that distract us from Krishna, that cause us to forget Krishna. So, for example, when we have these four regulative principles, these are set to contaminate and agitate our mind so much, it becomes difficult to focus on Krishna. So, broadly, the principle is that if I go back to this particular diagram, the world is big and Krishna is small. So, what I need to do is I need to connect with Krishna more and more. This is the bond that I develop. For that's why one of the fundamental principles of Bhakti is remember Krishna. The more we bond with Krishna, the more we focus on him, the more he will start becoming a bigger reality for us. And then we have to create some boundaries that we don't expose ourselves to the world so much. Now, in the world, there is constant news and there's politics and there is sports and there is movies and even all of these also. There can be something which is rajasic, there can be something which is tamasic. So there are certain things which, when we are exposed to, they start filling our mind and dominating our mind. So we try to decrease our connection. We try to regulate our connection. So essentially, bonds and boundaries. So what we want to make bigger, we expose our mind to that. What we want to make smaller, we minimize the exposure of our mind. And when we do these two things, gradually the world will start becoming smaller and smaller. It takes time, but it starts happening. The world starts becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. And Krishna starts becoming bigger and bigger. So when we say Krishna becomes bigger, what does it mean? From an experiential perspective, from a philosophical perspective, Krishna is always the biggest reality. But from an experiential perspective, when you say Krishna becomes bigger, what does that mean? Essentially, see, whatever is bigger for us, that has a bigger effect on us. So generally speaking, the world is a place of dualities. And there are many dualities in the world. There is heat and cold, there is victory and defeat. So many dualities are there. Now, especially those dualities to which we are attached. Say that there are so many sports matches going on. There's cricket and there's football and there's rugby and there's tennis. Now, we may not be attached to all of them. But say we are attached to cricket. And in cricket also, there are so many matches going on all over. Maybe we are attached to particular teams. So then, if our favorite team wins, we become delighted. Our favorite team loses, we become dejected. We become devastated also. So basically, where there is attachment, these dualities start becoming greater. So, wherever we are attached, that means whatever is big for us, what will happen is the world is a place of dualities. And within that, whatever it is that we are attached to, that will become, those dualities will become even bigger for us. So now, if the world becomes smaller for us, then what will happen is the world's dualities will also become smaller. And then, if the world's dualities become smaller for us, those dualities, their effect will also become smaller. So, one way to understand that Krishna is becoming bigger for us is that the world's dualities won't affect us so much. When we become spiritually advanced, these dualities will still keep happening in our life. But amid those dualities, the effect on us will be minimal. Yasman no dvijitno, na praharishet priyam prapya, no dvijit prapya cha priyam. We see, oh, this was a good thing, this was a bad thing. But when a good thing happens, there's no need to jump up and down the sky. Okay, it's good. Then the bad happens. Oh, yeah, this is not such a good thing. But life moves. It's not the end of the world. So basically, one way we can understand our spiritual advancement is by seeing our material steadiness. How steady do we become? So before we started practicing bhakti, if some problem had come, you might have become completely shaken or shattered. Shaken or shattered. But now, when that similar problem comes, we are concerned, a little worried, but the effect is not so much. So, if we are steadier, that will mean that the world becomes smaller. So basically, we can say at this stage we become materially, when we are materially steady, we also become materially peaceful. Now, many people say, I want shanti. Man bada shant hai, shant karna hai. Now, the problem with seeking peace is that we also want joy. We don't just want peace, we want joy. And in the world, if we say, I want to become peaceful, it can't be that, say, if India wins the match, say many of us are Indians, whichever country you're from, India wins the match, and oh, I'll be joyful. When India loses the match, I'll be detached and peaceful. It doesn't work like that, isn't it? That if I want the joy when India wins, I will also get the pain when India loses. So what happens for many people, they feel that if I become detached, then my life will become emotionally barren, emotionally empty. Where will be the joy in my life? Because when good things happen, I get the joy. When bad things happen, I don't want the unhappiness that comes there. But many people say this is a part of the package, this is what life is. So when we become materially peaceful, say when this boundary between us and the world becomes firm, boundary becomes thick and firm, then what happens is the world doesn't affect us so much. But then where is our joy? That comes from our bond with our Lord. The bond becomes strong. And through this bond, we become spiritually joyful. We become materially peaceful, but we become spiritually joyful. So when the Lord becomes the source of our joy, so another way we know that the Lord has actually become bigger for us is that the world's things don't affect us so much. Oh, my boss spoke like this, or this thing happened with my neighbor, this thing happened with this relative. It's not a good thing. I don't get so worried about it. And after that, I come to the temple, I hear some katha, I participate in the kirtan. I find that a flood of joy, a great amount of, like a stream of joy starts coming. Then indicates that Krishna has become bigger. So we become spiritually joined. This bond starts becoming bigger and bigger for us. So in this way, so what are we talking about? Why should we target Krishna? Because when we target Krishna, these two things will happen to us. We will become materially peaceful and we will become spiritually joyful. So, and these are both wonderful things, wonderful states to be in. When we can become these two things. So when we have when we target Krishna, one result is materially peaceful, other result is spiritual joy. And when these start happening, we start experiencing life at a different level. We start accessing a joy that was not accessible to us. When we are remembering Krishna, when we become absorbed in hearing Krishna Katha, learning new things about Krishna, the joy, the richness that comes in our heart, and it is something which was not accessible. Sukataram aparam na jatu jane, Hari Charana Smaranam Dena Tunyam. Kulishekar Maharaj was a great king. As a king, he had access to all the pleasures of the world. Pleasures most of us can only dream about. And yet he is saying that ever since I have become absorbed in remembrance of the Lord, Sukataram Aparam Jatu Jane. I don't know any other pleasure as good as Hari Charana Smarana Amrutena Tunyam. The Amrit, the nectar of the remembrance of Lord. So, how do we go about it? This is the last part of the talk. Bonds and boundaries. I said, how do we go about establishing these bonds and establishing these boundaries? That's how we can actually target it. That we target Krishna. Whenever we make something as a target, what does that mean? We focus on that thing and we avoid getting distracted by others. So the bond is what I'm focusing on. Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhi Ekeha Kurna. That is the bond. Bhushakha, no, that is the boundary. So what does bonds and boundaries mean for us practically in the world? Because most of us still have to function in the world. We can't just turn away from the world. We can't turn away from the world's responsibilities. So this is where that first quadrant was that this world is real and the other world is also real. So that is important to understand. Now bhakti has these two aspects to it. One is transcending. We turn away from the world. So we turn away from the world and we focus on Krishna. Then bhakti is also world transforming. That is also an aspect of the world. So, for example, in 12.8, Krishna says that in just 12.8 and 9 in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Mayi eva mana tatsva mayi buddhim niveshaya. Just fix your mind on me, live in me. But then in 12.10, he says, you will work for me, you serve me. So there are multiple ways in which bhakti can be practiced. And this world transcending aspect of bhakti is primarily the time of our sadhana. When we are doing our sadhana, at that time, we turn away from the world and focus on Krishna. We hear about Krishna, we chant his names, we worship him, we recite his verses, we turn away from the world. And the purpose of sadhana is not just to meet a particular numerical target. Okay, I have to chant this number of rounds. That target is important. But what is its importance? Now, during the time of our sadhana, at least for a few moments, we need to get that experience. Actually, Krishna is a much bigger reality. The purpose of sadhana is to bring our consciousness into the presence of Krishna and to realize that Krishna is a far bigger, that Krishna is supreme reality. So we may not remember throughout the day that Krishna is the bigger reality. because we have to finish some negotiations and navigate through traffic, deal with different kind of people. At that time, those issues will be present in our mind prominently. But at least sometime during the day, ideally at the start of the day, we get some experience. It reminds us that there is a bigger reality. And there is another world beyond this visible world. And that world is unchanged. That there is Krishna. So this world transcending aspect of Krishna that comes through our sadhana. So in sadhana, I talk about this verse 4.10. We discuss Vita, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha, those three world views. So there Krishna says Manmaya and then Mam Upashtaha. So these are two distinct stages actually. Manmaya and Mam Upashtaha. What does this mean? That initially, say, this is my consciousness and this is Krishna. Krishna is small for me at this point, but I give Krishna entrance into my consciousness. So, for example, you're sitting here hearing this class, right? And there are so many things. Maybe the temperature is too hot or too cold for you. Maybe the floor is not so comfortable. Maybe you're hungry. There are so many stimuli that are there in the consciousness. But we let Krishna be at least one of those. We bring Krishna into our consciousness. Other things might be there, but let Krishna be there at least one of the things in our consciousness. So this is the stage of attention. We try to pay attention. Pay attention means there are many other things which can catch our attention, but we are trying to pay attention to one thing. And then as we pay attention to Krishna from Manmaya is we fix our mind in Krishna. But after a period of time, what happens is, if this is my consciousness, I understand that actually Krishna is the bigger reality. And it's not so much that Krishna is entering into my consciousness as my consciousness is entering into Krishna. We gain entrance into Krishna. But that doesn't mean we merge into Krishna, but like our consciousness becomes immersed in Krishna. Our consciousness becomes completely absorbed in Krishna. Sometimes when we come from a long and disturbing day, and it's a kirtan going on, we sit down and try to focus on the kirtan, and the kirtan becomes very absorbing. Then what happens? It's almost as if we forget that, I am in Singapore, I am in this particular room. We feel as if we are transported to some other reality. So what has happened is our consciousness is entered into Krishna. This is the state of absorption. So you want to be absorbed in Krishna. So from attention, gradually absorption comes. Manmaya to Mahapashitaha. So this is the world transcending aspect of Bhakti. That for at least some time during the day, we try to transcend. We try to practice our sadhana in such a way that we are reminded that there is another. When Hayagriva Prabhu met Srila Prabhupada for the first time, it was on the streets of New York. Prabhupada in 1965, when he went to America, he had no money. There's no social media over there. So even when he was conducting classes, there was no way for him to do publicity for the classes. So Prabhupada adopted simply the cheapest way of doing publicity. He would just go for long walks on the streets of New York. And anybody who would stop and talk with him, Prabhupada would spend time talking. Imagine, pure devotee just walking on the street and we all that we do is just approach and talk with them. So that was great fortune. So anyway, Hayagriva Prabhu was, at that time the whole idea was there that you take drugs and you can go high and become spiritual. So he was about to go to his Howard Wheeler. He was going to meet his friend and they were going to take some drugs. And he had been to India in search of a guru before, and unfortunately hadn't found any guru. He said that those who seemed enlightened, they didn't know English. Those who knew English didn't seem enlightened. They seemed like more priests who were interested in our money and in our fame and other things. So he came back from India disappointed. And then he was walking on the streets. Krishna is looking here and then he saw, hey, there's a sannyasi over here in saffron robes. At that time, Buddhism was not common in the West. So saffron robes were extremely rare. So who is this? He thought, have I already taken drugs? I'm already high. The lorry went by. And then he saw the Swami is still there. He stopped and looked on. Another lorry went by. And then he saw the Swamiji actually also stopped and looking at him. And then he ran across to meet Swami. And Swami, are you from India? Yes, and you? No, but I've been to India. And he started talking. And these giant lorries were passing by that road. And the first thing that Agriculture struck me was that Prabhupada was so peaceful. It was as if he was not in New York. Although he was there, but he was not there. He was very attentive to what I was speaking, responding to that. But he seemed to be grounded in some other reality. He was so calm, he was so serene, he was so satisfied. So that is a glimpse. Sometimes when we associate very saintly devotees, we get that glimpse. Although they are here, but they are also there. They're grounded in something far deeper. They're grounded in anchored in some much bigger reality. So that is the gaining entrance into Krishna. Our consciousness becomes anchored in. Now, for most of us, this may not always be a steady experience. But even if sometimes it comes, even if at the time of sadhana, for a few moments, for a few minutes, or sometimes in satsanga we get that experience, there is a bigger reality. So this, what it does is, this world transcending aspect of through sadhana, we get enrichment. Enrichment means we start feeling internally rich, internally satisfied. Remember, one of the things I said is that we understand as we grow, we start understanding that our thoughts are more important than the things. As I can get good things in my life, but if my thoughts are all negative, I can't really be happy. So that inner enrichment starts becoming experienced. And that enrichment is actually a virtue. It's more than things. Now, after this, see the world, there is another reality we want to experience that. It's important to experience that. But along with that, we also understand this world is real. And we want to serve in this world. We want to do Krishna's will in this world. And that's why the world transforming aspect of bhakti is that a devotee, after we have done our sadhana, the world transforming is our seva. Now, seva can be the direct seva that we come and do the temple. Seva can also be the family that we raise in Krishna's service. The seva can also be the job that we do. Krishna says, Swakarmana tamapyanta. Through your work, worship him. And through devotion, what happens is, for us, for doing this world transformation, what we get is empowerment. So we get enrichment internally through our sadhana. And through our seva, we start experiencing empowerment. Now, what does empowerment mean? It is a common word in devotional circles, but empowerment means two different things. I'll conclude with this point that when we talk about empowerment, this involves at one level, we start finding abilities, resources that we didn't know we had. Like somebody might think I'm a very timid and I'm afraid of speaking in public. But we start serving Krishna, we get the courage to start speaking about Krishna to others, to distribute books, when we give classes. We find that we find abilities and resources and interests that we didn't know we had. So, in one sense, internally, are those abilities there by our past karma and we're just discovering them? Or are those abilities given to us by Krishna? Whatever it is, who knows? But we start finding that I can do things which I thought that earlier I would never be able to do. So that is one aspect of empowerment. That we start finding resources. The resources they are internally. We get abilities, we get talents, we get something. And then, not only that, we start finding, uh, we could use the word miracles, but we could also use the word, let's use the word miracles right now. Miracles means that externally things start working for us. We try to do something in Krishna service, and then it's not that immediately miracles start happening. But we try to do one thing, it doesn't work. Second thing, it doesn't work. Third thing doesn't work. Fourth thing, suddenly a dozen things fall in place. Just everything starts working. So for Srila Prabhupada, for so many years, nothing was working when he was trying to serve Krishna. Then, from 1966 onwards, so many things have just started working. The way the Krishna conscious movement spread from 66 to 76 was extraordinary. And it was not just for Prabhupada it happened. Yes, but those who were following Prabhupada also it happened. And those who were following Prabhupada, they also found they would go to a particular place and they would meet somebody. And at that time, when the devotees came to England, George Harrison was probably the most popular person in the world. And to meet him was next to impossible. The devotees were completely unknown. But they not only got to meet him, they befriended him and he became, in many ways, a supporter, if not follower of Srila Prabhupada. So how it worked out was extraordinary. But it just worked out. So we will find that externally things will start falling in place. They won't happen automatically. They won't happen immediately. Because the Prabhupada, it took time. It didn't happen immediately. But when it happened, Prabhupada said that his success exceeded even his expectations. Prabhupada did say, when he was 1965 alone in America, and he was in Philadelphia, he was telling there are temples and they're filled with devotees, only time is separating us. So Prabhupada had that faith. But even Prabhupada had 108 temples, thousands of devotees all over the world. That was extraordinary. So that was the empowerment. And it's not that empowerment is only for Prabhupada or for some special devotees who are serving Prabhupada. No, Krishna wants every one of us to become our best. Krishna wants each one of us to do our best. When you talk about this empowerment, now what does it mean? See, we often have this verse 15.7. That we are parts of Krishna. And then we say we are always parts of Krishna. Sanatana. Now we often use this philosophically to refute Mayavad, that we'll never become one with God. But there is also a practical application of that. What does it mean? If we are parts of Krishna, that means we have parts in Krishna's plan. And we have parts in Krishna's plan always. Sanatana. Like somebody selected as a part of the Singapore volleyball team. Then if they're selected as a part of the volleyball team, then you have a part in the team. What exactly that part is, how that part will develop, that will vary. But we are all a part of Krishna's team. Krishna has a part for each one of us. For some of us, the part may be very big, for some of us, the part may be very small. But we all have a part. And when we start playing that part, then Krishna will start doing amazing things. Krishna will empower us. Internally, we'll get abilities. Externally, we'll find situations where we can use those abilities. And we will be able to do things far more than what we thought normally possible. So that is how a devotee makes a positive difference in this world also. Devotees are not just meant to reject the world and go toward Krishna. Yes, we are meant to serve Krishna. And this we have parts in Krishna's plan always. This is understood through this 11.29, the Bhagavad Gita. 11.29 is the verse which describes Yatha Nadinam Bahuam Bhuvega. It describes how the various warriors who are going to die in the battlefield, two metaphors are used. Some are like moths entering into fire, and some are like rivers entering into the ocean. So now, in the Shiva Vaishnava tradition, there's a prominent follower of Ramanacharya, Vedanta Deshika. He has written a sub-commentary on the Gita. And in that sub-commentary, he gives a beautiful explanation of this wind river going toward the ocean. He says the ocean is Krishna and the river is the Jiva. Now, the river goes toward the ocean. Now, the impersonal say we merge into the ocean. But actually, if you consider the river to be atoms, river to be water, the water never really merges. The atoms still exist. We just may not see them. So the point is not merging. But he says that when the river is going toward the ocean, it's not just that the river is only concerned about going toward the ocean. Yes, the river is concerned about going toward the ocean. But while going toward the ocean, the river nourishes so much life form on both its banks. So, like that, a devotee, while moving toward Krishna, does benefit to this world also. So, the ocean is, the river is going toward the ocean. So, the ocean is Krishna, but the land through which the ocean is going, that is the world. And this is the devotee. So, that means, yes, we want to attain Krishna, but while we are attaining Krishna, Krishna has given us some abilities. Krishna has given us other circumstances. And we are meant to do good in this world in the mood of service to Krishna. Whatever be our particular role, if our role is parents, we try to raise our children in the best possible way. If our role is a professional, we try to do that professional. If we are a doctor, we try to heal in the mood of service to Krishna. If we are engineers, we are lawyers, we try to do whatever we are doing in the mood of service to Krishna. We try to do good to others through that service. And ultimately, the river attains the ocean. So the world is the means and Krishna is the end. So the means is important, but the end is the most important. This last 1 or 2 months, actually since last Janmashtami, I have been rereading Prabhupada's life, and one thing that struck me is very moving and inspiring. One of the single project on which Prabhupada invested more energy than anything else. Can you see which was that project? Jew temple. And if you consider Prabhupada fought practically like a war. Giriraj Maharaj has written a whole book about this. So now the Jew temple was inaugurated in January 1917. And Prabhupada departed from the world in November 1977. Just 2 months before. Now Prabhupada wanted to build this temple for Krishna. And Prabhupada could have said to Krishna, Krishna, I built this temple for you. Just let me see the inauguration of this temple. But when Prabhupada was asked the last few days of his life, does he have any last desires? Prabhupada said, Kuch ichha nahi. It is not detachment. Prabhupada was definitely invested in the temple. But Prabhupada was invested much more in Krishna. So that for a devotee, we may want to do things for Krishna. Prabhupada did far more things for Krishna than most of us can ever do. Not just in one life, but in many lifetimes. But yet, even while being so empowered to do so many things for Krishna, the means never became more important than the ends. The world never became more important than Krishna. There was no dissatisfaction, there was no agitation. Krishna, I worked so hard, just let me see this temple. So that was Prabhupada's exalted level. And this is possible because although Prabhupada was devoted to bringing manifestations of the spiritual world in this world, he still knew that the spiritual world is the bigger world. That is the bigger reality. And if I don't complete this temple, Krishna will have somebody else. This is like a multi-part play. There are multiple characters playing parts. It's not that I am the center. Prabhupada played his part, which was far bigger than anyone else's part can be. But Prabhupada knew that it is a part. And when Krishna told him your part is over, Prabhupada took the service of demonstrating how to depart in Krishna consciousness without becoming agitated, still being absorbed in writing about Krishna, dictating Krishna's message. Prabhupada departed from the world. But this is where a devotee does consider this world real and does good in this world. But a devotee also understands there's another world that is real, ultimately the bigger reality. And the devotee goes through this world to that higher reality. By Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we have the association of devotees and we have the opportunity to practice bhakti and also make Krishna the target of our life, both through our sadhana and through our seva. As we make Krishna the target through our sadhana, we will start experiencing enrichment in our heart. And as we try to make Krishna a target through our seva, we'll start experiencing empowerment in our life. Let's summarize what we discussed today. Today, our focus was on how do we make Krishna as the target of our life? What does it mean practically? So we started by talking about the evolution of devotion based on the journey from 716 to 719. So initially, we can use the metaphor of the parent child that Krishna calls even the mixed devotees as Udaraha. That, that Krishna is so eager for our love that he wants us for whatever reason we come to him. But then it is the lover and beloved. At that time, we want, even if we are just one among many choices, or even the last choice, still Krishna accepts us. But Krishna wants us to be him to be our first option, our first choice. And that shows our love for him. So we discussed that metaphor of lover and beloved. And then how do we evolve in such devotion? For such evolution of devotion, we talked about abhyas and vairagya, bonds and boundaries. In any relationship, the person we want to bond with, we want to focus on that person. And others, we have to have some boundaries. So the world is big for us and Krishna is small. To make the world small and Krishna big, we need to create boundaries between us and the world, and we need to bond with. So that means how do we bond with Krishna? That is by we focus on the things that remind us of Krishna, that connect us with Krishna. And we keep a distance from the things that agitate us, that take us, disconnect us from Krishna. So in this way, each one of us has to find out what boundaries I need to establish, what bonds I need to establish. And when we try to establish these bonds, so what exactly happens through the bonds is that initially we give Krishna entrance into our consciousness. That is attention. The stage of attention is where we give Krishna entrance. And then eventually what happens is we start realizing that Krishna is the far bigger reality and we gain entrance into Krishna. That is the stage of absorption. Manmaya mamupashitaha. This is how we develop our bond with Krishna. Now, this bond is what we develop through our sadhana primarily, through our remembrance of Krishna, but primarily through sadhana. So then we talked about a further aspect of this bond was that when we bond with Krishna at a internal level, we experienced enrichment. So bhakti has this world transcending and world transforming aspects. So transcending aspect is where at least for a few moments in the day, we focus on Krishna so seriously that we realize Krishna is the bigger reality. And then we turn toward the world and is function in the world. And there we find empowerment. Empowerment for our service to Krishna. Empowerment can be in terms of the abilities that we discover internally. Empowerment can be in the facilities that come our way. Somehow things start working, by which we start getting the results. And we start being able to do things that we thought we might never be able to. And the example was like a river that goes toward the ocean, also nourishes the life on the banks of the river. The river is the devotee, the banks is the world. A devotee goes good in the world, and ultimately a devotee attains Krishna. And what is important is for a devotee, initially God is the means and the world is the end. But eventually the world becomes the means and God becomes the end. And discuss of Srila Prabhupada, for him, Krishna always remained bigger than even his biggest project for Krishna. This is the Juhu temple. That was Prabhupada's great devotion. By his mercy, we can also be enriched and empowered with similar devotion. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, no.
Thank you very much. Very enlightening. With this sadhana which we are doing at Chanti, what are some tips we can increase our level? Yes, we find that for short moments we get it, but most of the time, mind keeps going.
Okay. So first thing is, don't reduce sadhana only to chanting. No, whatever enables us to experience Krishna, give due priority to that. For some people, it might be kirtan. For some people, it might be their puja. For some people, it might be studying Shastra. So whatever it is that helps us experience the largeness of Krishna, the greatness of Krishna. That's why at our level, the operational principle is yena kena prakarena mana Krishna Krishna. Somehow or other. Now, having said that, what we need to do is that in our bhakti, there are a range of activities. In some activities, we could say they give strength to us. That means we look forward to doing those activities. We feel enlivened by doing those activities. Now, some activities require strength. That means maybe we don't like to fast on Ekadashis. But we know it is good for me, so we may fast. It requires some strength and then some willpower it requires. Now, both bring purification. But one may be relatively easier, the other may be relatively tougher. So it's like with people also in our lives. Some people, being with them enlivens us, it energizes us. Look forward to spending time with them. Some people, as soon as they come, it feels like they suck all the oxygen out of the room. Every word we speak, it is as if we're going to step on a mine. There's going to be explosion. So careful. Being with them requires strength. And when they leave, we feel such a relief at that time. So the thing is that there will be different kinds of people. And sometimes the people who require strength, they may actually be good for us. They may help us grow. They may also become help us become more careful and meticulous about certain things. So for us, sometimes our chanting may give us strength. Sometimes our chanting may require strength. Just as when we are dealing with different people, during the course of a day, we have to make sure that we maintain our emotional energy balance. If in a day I'm meeting 10 people and all of them require strength, I'll be completely knocked out by the end of it. If to whatever extent I can plan, maybe I meet 3, 4, 5 people who require strength and I alternate it with one or two people with whom I get strength. And that way we maintain our strength. So like that with respect to our bhakti also, for the activity that requires strength, we need to gain strength from other activities to do that. So if we find that our mind is wandering too much in chanting, that means that at that time focusing on Krishna is requiring so much strength, and we are not having that strength. So then maybe just pause for a few minutes. Maybe look at the picture of our spiritual master. Maybe at the time we took initiation. Or look at some picture of Krishna, which reminds us of our favorite pastime. Maybe sing one or two Hare Krishna Mahamantras in our favorite tune. Or some devotees may like to keep some quotes about the holy name, the glory of the holy name, or have something which accessible to us, which gives us strength. Now I can't say that if I have to chant, I will spend so much time gaining strength that I don't have to do that. It's not that, oh, I can't focus on my mind. So I want to ask for chanting 1.5 hours, I'll do kirtan and half an hour I'll chant. No, you have to have a balance. Then certainly willpower and discipline are required. But try to have access to the source of strength. And then it will become easier to focus on Krishna. Okay. Any other questions? So thank you so much for your active participation for all these 3 days. And this was a devotionally directed, but it's also philosophically demanding presentation of a devotional conclusion. I appreciate how enthusiastic you were, and I was pleasantly surprised to see so many of you coming on the first day today also. So I pray that for all of us, Krishna becomes the bigger reality. As we all get to whatever degree he wants enriched and empowered in our particular domain of service. So Krishna Bhagwan ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki, Gaur Premanand.